Hey everybody, here I am finally giving you the tea on Snowglobe and Snowglobe 2. I finally finished Snowglobe 2. I actually finished it last week, but I just didn't have time to make a video on it, so I decided now was going to be the time. So I read Snowglobe last year when it first came out, and I was really impressed with it. It was a really fun, it's like YA sci-fi dystopian kind of vibes to it. On the back, I think it says, yeah, on the back it says The Hunger Game meets Squid Games. No, it doesn't. No. The only games being played in these books is mind games. That's it. Like, I guess there is like I think they call it a biathlon, but that is like one part of this, and she doesn't participate in it, by the way. It's just like part of their world, and there's a reason why it's kind of sick, but like it's nothing to do with Squid Games. It is very much a K-drama-esque story, I would say. I could see this playing out in a K-drama very easily, and her writing style very much reminds me of K-dramas. Um, so that was fun. And yeah, so let's just get into it. We're going to start with Snow Globe, though. So I did read this last year, and I haven't reread it. I didn't reread it before reading the second one, but I feel like I remembered enough of it, and it was clear enough in my mind what happened, aside from forgetting a few names, which were, I quickly caught back up as soon as I started reading the second one. So that was fine. But I definitely do plan on rereading this and then rereading the second one later when I'm done with my TBR a little bit more. Um, but this first one, so it starts out with Chobam. She is our lead character, and she lives outside of Snowglobe. We'll get into what Snowglobe is, but she lives outside of Snowglobe with her mother, twin brother Ongi, and her grandmother, and she works at a power plant because everybody who lives outside, it's like a post-apocalyptic world, where it's frozen all the time. It's like a second ice age has entered in, and it's always like negative 30 something degrees, even lower than that at times. So they travel via like buses. Usually they do have to go outside, so they have to bundle up when they go outside, like a lot, and they travel via buses which have like heaters installed in them. But it can be very dangerous if a bus breaks down. That's actually how they lost their father. Their father ended up freezing to death when he was trying to save some people from a bus that had frozen. And anyway, so there's that. That's where their father is. But they work at a power plant. So every day they go into the power plant and they're basically like working human hamster wheels to cause power to go to their town so that they can stay warm. You know what I'm saying? And as they run on their hamster wheels, they have TVs in front of the hamster wheels so they can watch their favorite shows. And where do their favorite shows come from, you may ask? They come from Snow Globe. So the whole concept of Snow Globe is it is a temperature controlled dome that covers a whole city that is like always the perfect temperature. Or sometimes, it fluctuates, but they have control over what the weather does basically in Snow Globe, and it's not frozen. And but the caveat for living in Snow Globe is that your life has to constantly be monitored. Basically, you are, as soon as you enter in there, you are either an actor, a director, or a producer. I want to say there's three roles, and you can be a super super famous actor or actress and be like the star of a show, or you can just be a bit player who is just like a taxi driver that drives people around, and you happen to be on a really famous person's show now and then. And if you do not, if you don't make enough of an impact, if your acting career doesn't go anywhere, you get sent back out to Snow Globe. Or if you are a director and your show is failing or fails in some way, you get sent to the retirees village. I don't know if actors also get sent to the retirees village. I just know that some get shipped like out. It's like, okay, bye, you're not doing enough here, goodbye. So there's actually at the beginning of this book, it mentions a specific actress who has this as her fate. Her name is Miryu, and Miryu, she was kind of a pariah even outside because she was on a TV show where she was a serial murderer. So, and TV show, it's actually her life. She actually did kill people. She was like a man killer. Like she killed all of her dates basically. And it's so weird because it's like this was her real life. Like, yes, she was coached to do this for her show, And you find out later that she was kind of like blackmailed into doing this show the way that it was done for the ratings, you know what I'm saying? But like the people living in Snowglobe genuinely just saw her as a serial killer, because when you live in Snowglobe, you can't watch TV. You don't get to watch any of the shows that are happening that you are filming. It's just your life. And of course, these people do put on personas and things like that, because there are moments when the slate clacks, the slate snaps, or I think they call it clacks or whatever, where basically all of the cameras shut off for a period of like 10 minutes and people can kind of like take a breath and just be a person instead of being an actor. But that is a very brief period of time. For the most part, that is who you are. So anyway, it's a very interesting like thought process. But anyway, she's on the outside, and Chobam actually saves her from freezing to death briefly, and then whatever. But then a director shows up in Chobam's town, and the director wants to speak with her. And this is a very famous director. Her name is Cha Sol. She's very famous. And Chobam really looks up to her because Chobam wants to be a director. She wants to be a director because she wants to do it, but also because she wants to help her family have a better life. Because, you can send proceeds to your family and stuff like that. So anyway, this director wants to meet with her, so she goes and talks with her, and then she finds out that she's a lookalike for this girl from her favorite show. And she's always thought that she looked like this girl from her favorite show. Her name's Go Heri, and I think her show was called like Go Around or something like that. I can't remember. It was some play on her name. And Go Heri is like Snowglobe's golden girl. She's beautiful, she's charming. She has grown up on the screen. She was born in Snowglobe and blah blah blah. Okay, so she's always been. And Chasol tells her that um that that Goheri has taken her own life, and that they need a replacement for her. They need a look-alike because they don't want the show to end like that. And of course, Chobam is horrified that this happened. How could the girl who had everything want to do that to herself, right? And she lives in the perfect place and all this stuff. But she agrees, ultimately. She agrees to go. And I am going to give spoilers for these as well, these books. So if you don't want to read spoilers, you might not want to. I'll let you know when I get to the big twist. This is not a big, that part is very early on in the book. But I will be giving spoilers for both books. But if you want to just know what it is, then you'll know what it is. So she ends up going into Snowglobe, and she's kind of, at first she's met with horror because they were also driving with another guy who was like a very down on his luck actor, and he was hoping that somehow being involved with this project with getting Chobam in to play Goheri would, I think, give him like an upgrade. But Chasol ends up throwing him out of the airplane into Snowglobe on their way to Snowglobe because he knows too much. He knows that Chobam is not Goheri and she doesn't want any loose ends. That is the beginning of the ruthlessness that you're gonna see in Snowglobe. Okay. They like to cover things up real quick. And immediately Chobam is like, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. I'm really scared. Could I also be thrown out of an airplane? But at the moment, she realizes she's too important. Okay. So anyway, she goes and she starts living life as Goheri, being on the show. And luckily for her, she's watched the show her whole life. So she's well aware of how to act like Goheri acts. And, she meets upon arrival. Now, the people who run Snowglobe are the Yibon family and the Yibon Media Group. Okay, so there's like chaebols involved here, and one of the chaebols is Yibon and Yibon is he's very charming and very friendly with her, and she doesn't really, she acts a little bit like, okay, but I don't really know you, but she tries to play that off. And obviously you can tell that he knows something's up, but he doesn't say anything. He just lets it slide. And then at this dinner party where she was in the presence of the Yi family, she ends up wandering away. She's getting a little stressed out because everybody's like, keeps asking her questions as Goheri and whatever. And she wanders away, and she ends up finding herself in a mess of hallways and in front of a mirror. And she's kind of stressing out. So she goes and she's like leaning on the mirror, and she falls through the mirror. Weird, right? And she ends up getting like whisked away through this mirror to a place that is very strange. It's like very hot and humid, and there are people on those hamster wheels that she remembers from her time at the power plant, and but they're like they look dead in the eyes, and she recognizes one of the people who is running on that hamster wheel. He was a convicted criminal, and she's so confused, and eventually she leaves, she runs out of there. She doesn't know what that place is or anything about it, but she's like, I don't want to ever go back there again. That was scary. And so, but it's kind of the first inkling that there's a lot more going on than we're aware of. However, that piece does not get addressed again until later. This book focuses more on Goheri's life. And so, as it goes on, Chobam realizes that things were not as they seemed for Goheri. She had a miserable life. Her family is very vicious. Her grandmother is abusive. Her mother is neglectful. And of course they're all being extra mean to her because they know she's not Goheri, but like it was just a miserable time for her, and she realizes maybe this is why Goheri took her own life. And so a lot of things happen. She ends up going to like the biathlon, and the biathlon is just for like athletes or whatever, but there at the end there's like a shooting portion where you're supposed to, I assume you would, like maybe it's like supposed to be like skeet shooting or something of that nature here, but instead they use it as an opportunity to release convicted criminals onto a field, and the athletes are supposed to shoot the convicted criminals. Now, she recalls that man that she saw in the basement, or in, I say the basement, but in that power plant running on that wheel was someone who had been a convicted criminal. And she's like, didn't he die in this or did he not? And she's like so confused. She doesn't get it, but whatever. So that's like about as crazy as you see it. But that's how they deal with their convicted criminals, I guess. But she ends up being a weathercaster, and that's a really big deal for her because being the weathercaster is like a fun job where you get to predict the weather of, Snowglobe, which could be anything at any time. It could be temperate, it could be cold, it could be rainy, it could be, whatever. They have all kinds of fun weather. And so she's excited about that. It's a really big pleasure, but she's starting to realize things are just not as they seem. And Yi Bonwi, the Chaebol heir, he is kind of hinting to that same thing, that there's something going on. She knows that she's not Haiti, and um, there's starting to be a little more tension. Now, she ends up going to, at some point, some other things happen, but she ends up going to a hospital, and she's basically come to a conclusion that there's something going on, and there's more than one Haiti. There's more than one. And so she's starting to dig into that. And then when she's there, now at this point, this is the big spoiler. Okay, so if you don't want to listen to this, don't listen to this. But at this point, I thought my prediction was that the original Haiti was actually still alive. She hadn't taken her own life, but for some reason she was hospitalized, maybe because of something her family did to her or something Cha Sol, the director, did to her, something like that. And I was like, okay, so we're going to find out that she's alive. No! What actually happened is that there are multiple Hairis, and she meets one of them in the hospital. And she ends up totally freaking out that there's another Haiti, but it's not the original Haiti. This is a different Haiti. And she ends up getting basically kicked out by, um, and this Haiti was in the hospital because she had some scars that needed to be fixed so that she could look more like Haiti, because she came from outside Snowglobe as well. Okay. So once she gets, and she's kind of her name is Seren? Seren? I'm trying to remember. She's kind of the antagonist in the second book. Yeah, Pei Serin is her name. And so she goes, and she wants the weather casting position. She wants the position of Goheri, actually. She wants to be the girl. Okay. So she ends up taking Chobam out, and Chobam gets sent away to the retiree village. Okay. uh, Basically gotten rid of. They want to cover her up, basically. And she ends up finding herself in the home of Cha Yang. And Yang is the little sister to Cha Sol. Okay. And she's kind of an alcoholic. She doesn't really care about anything. But from her, Chobam finds out the whole story. So she finds out that there was an original Goheri at some point, but when Meirang, who is the grandmother, and Cha Guobang, which is Cha Sol's grandfather, and Josh Wang's grandfather, when they found out that were going to make this show, they had this baby who had been born in Snowglobe. It was a big deal, that they needed to make sure that nothing would ever happen. If something ever happened to this child, that they could continue the show. So they cloned the baby multiple times. They made multiple Heris, and then they dispersed them to different women to give birth to, basically. So they made the clones, fertilized the egg, whatever, and implanted them in other women. Now, I do remember that being talked about in this book, but I think the women were like, I am 99.9% positive that the women were unknowingly implanted with these eggs, and they assumed that it was their husband's child. But later in the second book, I do know that at least one of the women, one of the parents knew that she wasn't theirs. So maybe they kind of figured things out, because I don't know, the kids didn't really look like the kids. But it's interesting because Chobam is the only one who is a twin. So somehow they managed to do that. But the mom didn't know. The mom had no idea, because yeah, anyway. So some of them knew, some of them didn't. Some of them figured it out, some of them didn't, I guess. But it was done in a sneaky, evil way, is what I'm saying. The Cha family, the directors, absolutely insane. So that was their plot, and that's where Chobam and Seirin and the girl before Chobam, which her name is Yosu, okay, and she wasn't even the original Heri, okay. They don't even know what happened to the original Heri. All they know is that one day Heri ran away into the woods, and the woods leads to a mirror, okay. And so, but they don't even know if that's the original Heri. Like, is that the original Heri? Like, how far back does it go? How many Heris have been in place, and what happened to all of them? So that's the big twist in this one, is the cloning. So then, Yang and Chobam decide that they are going to go find other Heris, and they learn of two other ones that live outside. One of them is Somyang, and the other one is mm, there's Serin and Say something. Oh my goodness. Why can't I remember? Their names are so close. Like, they're not close, but they're kind of close, if you know what I mean. Now I gotta look. Oh, I gotta hope that I can find the name somewhere. They're like, oh my gosh. They're always like in the same chapters, but like also, yeah, Yosu, Satan. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. I'm looking in the second book to see if I can find the name real quickly, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. It should be in the first chapter, you'd think. Uh, anyway, so they start going. Oh my gosh, I really want to find her name, because it doesn't seem right that I don't know her name. All of them have like different personalities and everything like that, which is really fun, because they should have different personalities. They were all raised in different places. They're so young. Where is the other? She doesn't show up like a ton in the book. She pretty much just shows up when like, oh, Shine. I'm sorry, not Say. Shine. Seirin, Shine, um and Somyang. Okay. So anyways, they're going out to find Somyang and Shine. So they go out, they do end up finding them, and as they're going, they actually find Ongi. Ongi, her brother. He is working on the railways now, and they use the railways to get back and forth between the different towns. So that's how they find him, and he gets in on the whole shebang. So once she gathers the other two, they decide to go back to Snowglobe, to go to the Snow Tower, which is the main tower in the center, and it's where they do all of their live casting for like the weather and things like that, or emergencies. So they go there, and they're going to go there all together and show all of Snowglobe what the Cha family has done, and the Go family. So they all go there together. That's their big plan. And of course, Satan, who is playing Haiti right now, wants nothing to do with that. And in fact, she tries to stop them, but she can't. They eventually go on, they live cast that they are all there, and they explain the situation, tell the horrors about what the Cha family has done. and it all comes out. And of course, all of Snowglobe is horrified at what they've gone through, and they're angry at how could this have been covered up, etc., etc. How could you do that to these girls? And what happened to the original Haiti? All they know is she disappeared into the woods. If that was the original one, we don't know. And Yosu actually committed, she took her own life because of the life that she had to lead. And then of course you have these two that were still living outside, that didn't even know that that was their fate. And of course you have Chobam and Seirin, who Seirin knew when she wanted to be famous, and her parents are the ones that knew that she wasn't theirs, so they were more than willing to give her up, which was really sad. You find that out later. um, but that's kind of where this ends. In fact, it ends with the Yi family gratefully actually making them their own show so that they can talk about their life as a bunch of Haiti clones and how they're going to plan on moving forward with their lives now. To me, that end seemed a little strange because it seemed like it was kind of like the shows are a bad thing, was the vibe that I got. Like, they bring negative consequences and they're exploiting people's lives. But it ended with Cha Yang, who had helped Chobam and the other girls to be directing the show, to come back from the retirees village and direct the show in a way that was, good for them so that they could tell their story. And I guess Snow Globe was just intended to continue on as usual. And though it ended on a positive note, to me, a lot of things felt very undone as well. I was like, okay, well, we wrapped up obviously the main twist, but whatever happened to that weird underground power plant, or the mirror thing and like all that? So it was like there was a lot of questions that were still unanswered, and also the idea that how did the Yi family, the Yibon family, not know what was going on? Like, well, it is the Yi family, but they call themselves the Yibons too because they're the Yibon media group. Okay, but how did the president and her whole family not know that the Cha family was up to no good? And of course, the Cha family end up, those involved, like Cha Sol, she goes to jail, and the parents or the family members of the Go family also go to jail for what they did because they all knew. Okay, so that's where this one ends off, which was good. It was exciting. It was fun. And then, of course, we've got Snow Globe 2, which this cover is horrible. Like, compared to this cover, like, come on. This is not even half as cute, bro. Like, seriously. But, so this one picks up immediately. So it picks up with the girls. They're doing their show together, and all that. Seirin hates Shanae, Somyoung, and especially Chobam because she feels like her life was ruined. She was supposed to live as Haiti, and she's very much like greedy for the spotlight. She really wants fame and fortune, and she wants her name to be something. Okay. And she feels like that has all been ruined for her because now she's just a Haiti clone, and who cares about anything else? So at the beginning, she basically promises Choban that she's going to ruin her life in some way, and that sets up for the first twist, which isn't a super big twist because it's actually on the dust jacket. But Haiti gets framed for murder, for murdering Go Mei Jung, which is the grandmother of Go Heri. She gets murdered by someone who looks like Chobam, was dressed the exact same way she was that day, and Chobam did go to the house where Go Mei Jung lived that very day at that very time. Now, Cha Yang, who is directing their show, saw this and decided she would cover it up. Now, cover ups are not allowed in the directing circles. There are certain things you're not allowed to do. And if you do them, a disaster meter that lives in Snow Globe will go up. People, like actors, are not allowed to hide behind partitions for too long. Where they can't be seen. Directors aren't allowed to make changes to anything that has been filmed. You're not allowed to cut things out. If you do, the disaster meter will go up. And if the disaster meter goes up far enough, a disaster will happen. And disasters are sent in by outsiders, mostly children, I think. So most of the disasters are silly, and their disaster ends up being very silly, but also extremely detrimental. So it's something you wouldn't think was detrimental, but totally is. Okay. So the first half of this book, I think, is really slow because it's really trying to figure out who is framing her, and um, and kind of the panic of like she's in trouble, and soon somebody's going to see it, and it's going to come out that she's a murderer, and she's going to go to jail, and she didn't even do it. And that's kind of like the first half, and you think it'd be more exciting, but it wasn't. And the disaster ends up happening, and the disaster is a bubble bubble apocalypse, I guess. I don't know. It's just bubbles that fall from the sky. However, the bubbles make everything slick, and they fall so heavily that they make these like mounds of almost like snow, but it's bubbles, and it makes everything slick. There's car accidents everywhere. People are falling and getting hurt, and the hospital is full, and no one can drive, and the emergency vehicles can't get around. Like, it ends up being chaos. Because when you think about it, soap is slippery, slippery, slick, and that's what happens. Um, that's their disaster. So it's kind of them dealing with that. Which is like, it's fine, but it didn't feel like focused enough for me. I don't know. The beginning was just slow. Okay. And then we also have this strange event that happens where she meets someone named Chairman Shin, and Chairman Shin is part of the kind of their family, along with the Yi family, kind of started things in Snowglobe, but the Shin family is more in charge of like the engineering of Snowglobe, whereas the Yi family is like the overlords. Okay. So she meets her, and she gives her a card, and she asks her to like talk with her or whatever, and she's like, okay. And she seems nice. She seems pleasant. Um, and she also meets someone named Buhei, and Buhei ends up being a hypnotist, like a really insane hypnotist that hypnotizes her to not talk about the mirrors or that underground power plant that she saw. And if she even thinks about it, she gets horrifically ill. Okay. And I thought this was going to be like a really interesting thing for her to have to work around. And for like a few chapters it is, but then it kind of like they give this like, okay, all you have to do is face your fear and it will go away. And she at some point, I guess she does, but it's so subtle that I'm like, but then eventually it goes away, and it's no longer a problem. She can talk about the mirrors, and she can talk about the thing, and it's no longer an issue. It's just some of the things I really like her writing, but sometimes like she is so good at setting like a tone and setting up an idea, but then it feels like she kind of drops the ball. Like, it's almost like the author So Young Park, she ends up like getting bored with the idea, and she just finds a way to drop it, and it's not always in the most satisfying way. Buppy, oh, my little Buppy boy, he's my cat. He's sad. He wants to go outside of my room, but you can't yet, bud. We go outside later, okay? He wants to get outside and see the birdies, but he can't go outside by himself, so he's got to hang out with me on the porch. He just goes on the porch. Anyway, he doesn't go on the porch. He's scared of the porch, but he wants to watch the porch, so he needs to go out with me. But anyway, well, after the video, okay, bub, come here. Maybe you can see him. No, he doesn't want to come. I would show him off, but he doesn't want to come over. Anyway, so I just feel like with some of the ideas, she kind of drops the ball, or she gets bored of them, or she wants to move on to the next thing, and it's just not always the most satisfying. But anyway, push comes to shove, she eventually realizes she needs to get into a mirror and get to the underground place. And she's been empowered by Chairman Shin to do this. Chairman Shin has given her a cardioverter, which is like a heart-shaped plastic thing that she can put over her heart. And when she taps it 3 times, it makes her heart speed up so that it actually creates electricity that warms her body. And she knows that leaving Snowglobe, going through, there's like this huge area between Snowglobe and the underground power plant where it's freezing. So she needs that cardioverter. And she is convinced, and Chairman Shin is convinced, that they can use this cardioverter in the outside world to keep people warm, okay? Because it uses electricity from your body to warm you up. I thought it sounded like weird, personally, but whatever, if that floats your boat. She also had made like this type of material that's heat, like it holds in heat or whatever. So like between the two things, it's like a good thing. It's supposed to help. Here, puppy, come here. Yeah, come here. Look, come here. He's like, no, no, I don't want to come here. Come here. Hi. This is Puppy. Yeah, he wants to go. All right, go ahead. I know you want to go outside. We're gonna go outside. Okay, but anyway, so and Chairman Shin also explains that, and this is, I guess this we're getting into spoiler territory. So if you don't want to listen to any of that, you might want to skip the rest of this because we're gonna get to the big twist pretty soon. But Chairman Shin explains that she is also a clone. So the Shin family, they um, basically have the blueprint. Their genetics is the blueprint for a lot of the workings, the inner workings of Snowglobe. So there always has to be a Chairman Shin. And it's not enough that they're it wouldn't be enough to have like an heir, I guess. They needed the actual genetics because she's basically the key to all the locks. And so they cloned the original Chairman Shin, and there are just many Chairman Shins. In fact, there's one that's living in the Yi household right now who is much younger than the Chairman Shin there. The other issue being is they have a genetic um, disability, which I don't know what it is because I don't think she explained it, but she's in a wheelchair. She can't move her legs and things like that. So whatever disability that may have been is continually passed down. So there's no way for any of the clones to live without a wheelchair, which is also kind of like, not that there's anything wrong with disability, and I don't have an issue with that, like, but it's just like to know that you are willingly cloning somebody who is going to have a genetic disability. Again, I mean, I personally, I don't, I, well, as I say it out loud, I'm like, oh, I don't care. I mean, whatever. The person deserves to be alive. It doesn't matter what their disability is. But it's, I guess in the story, it's kind of seen as like a dark thing. Like, why would you continually do that? You know, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. I don't think it really matters. But I'm just saying that that's in there. So you find out she's a clone too, and there's another clone of her that's living in the Yi mansion. It's kind of dark. So, I mean, that part is dark, okay? Don't clone people. It's freaking psycho behavior. So, anyway, she decides her mission is to go into the underground power plant and save anybody who's there. Well, actually, mainly her thing is I gotta shut it down because once we shut down the power plant, because Snowglobe's whole claim to fame is that they are built on top of a geothermal vent, basically, that keeps them perfectly temperate and warm. But that's not true. It's actually built, their temperature control is built on the backs of the innocent. And well, some of them are convicted criminals, okay? But some of them are convicted criminals by snow globe standards, which means maybe they're just snitches, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, it's built on their backs. And as soon as she puts a wrench in that, if she stops the power plant, everyone will know that Snow Globe is a fraud, okay? And that the Yees are a fraud. So that's her main intention of going down there. But she wants to help people too. So anyway, she goes down there and she finds herself completely shocked because she sees actors that she recognizes that disappeared and also a little girl, which is very strange. And she ends up getting caught and knocked out immediately upon entering there. Like, she really didn't think this through. And she finds herself in a quarantine. And people are like frantic. They're like, you know, you don't have a fever or anything, you don't have any weird things, but something's wrong. And she comes to realize through all their frantic behavior that they're afraid that she has some sort of virus because she's come in from the outside. And then you come to learn that everybody who lives in this underground prison, because it's a prison, it is also a power plant, but it's a prison, they all believe that the world has ended and that they have been saved by Teacher, who is the vice president Yi, who is Bonwi's mother, okay, and that they've been rescued and they are the last remaining humans on Earth, and they're waiting for a chance to be able to escape again, but they're just grateful to be alive, okay? And Teacher takes care of them and helps them to survive while they're in this underground prison, and they simply work here and work in the power plant to ensure that the power plant continues, or the prison, whatever, I don't remember what they call it, but the place continues to function so that they can all live while the virus ravages outside and kills everybody else, okay? So her coming in from the outside being okay is actually like shocking to them. They don't understand how this is possible. All of them barely survived and by coming in here, and she could spread it to everybody. So they're super freaked out about her at first. And now this part of the book was where it got good, and I could not put it down because I was like, oh, I gotta know the tea. The Yi family is insane. They're actually so evil. Like, yeah, okay, first of all, they did know about the Hetty cloning thing, so that's sick, because they're also cloning the Shins, and now they also have an underground prison full of people that they're using their labor for to keep Snowglobe running, and they are hypnotizing all of them, wiping their memories. Number one, they wipe their memories, and then they're hypnotizing them with buhe, okay, to to believe that the world has ended and that they have survived some sort of plague. Buddy, come here. What's the matter? I know you want to go out, sweetie. We're gonna go out. He's like, no, no, we're not. But so they're like sick in the head, okay? And then you find out also because the first of all, they all have very strange names. It's the little girl is named Sky. She was actually born in the prison, which is also sick to think about, but I guess her mother isn't there anymore. Well, no, her mother isn't there anymore, and I know what happened to her. But the girl, they keep calling Chobam Wisher, like a wisher. They all give each other strange names. Like there's a woman named Healer, there's a man named Mr. Knife, there's a few strange ones, but also Bonwi is there. Bonwi. And the reason he's there, I believe, is to kind of monitor the situation, but he also was his parents um said that his plane crashed outside of Snowglobe, so they're trying to get rid of him too because he was kind of defying their will, and they're starting to think he might not be a good heir. Okay, so that's why he's there. I think they're kind of put him down there to give him a second chance. And here's the thing: here's what he would have had to do, because you actually have a chapter with him as the point of view when he was a child. And here's what they do. So eventually, the hypnotism does wear off over time, and what happens is people start to get their memories back and they get angry and they want to leave, obviously. And they start questioning teacher and so forth. And when that happens, they have already, at that point, because it shows a scene from when he's a child, they give the people, before they get to that point where they're starting to remember, they start giving them these vitamin D pills to take. And they take them and they take them and they take them. And then the hypnotism wears off. And then they realize, they come to themselves. And then basically what happens is they start to cause a riot. And Bonwi's like terrified. But at that moment, a bell rings, okay? A bell rings, and then suddenly everybody starts walking towards this well in the middle of the prison. And it's called a well, but it's really not. So there's no water in there, okay? But they all start jumping into this well because it's big enough to hold the entire prison full of people. So I can't even imagine what it looks like. But the well is an incinerator. So they all willingly jump in there because they have somehow taken a pill that mind controlled them. I don't know. When the bell rings, I don't know if it's another form of hypnotism or whatever, but they all jump in there and they all get incinerated all at the same freaking time. And so that's what they do when they start to run out of people. Or the people start to wake up and they realize they need to get rid of these people and bring in a whole new set of prisoners. Okay. So that's what they do. And it's freaking sick because they literally, like, the Yi matriarchs call them human trash. Like, who cares? It's just human waste. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, they're gross. And like the way that they talk about them is sick. And Bon Wee actually, as a child, he tried to stop a lot of the people from walking into the well, and but he couldn't because they were like zombies, like mind controlled. He managed to save a little girl that was there when he was a child, um, but he couldn't save anybody else, and he was heartbroken by it. And his mother was furious with him, and so was the grandmother. And the grandmother was basically like, "Listen, we're gonna give you one last chance to be a good Yi, but you're gonna have to get used to doing stuff like this." So I think in the present time, that's why he's down there. And um, so Chobam is down there trying to figure out how to stop everything from happening while also dodging people who think that she's like a problem for the Yi family, I don't think they know about the Yi family, but for the teacher or for for their environment or whatever. So they're like trying to get rid of her. She's dodging around. She's trying to figure out what to do. She eventually comes to learn that Buhei, or the hypnotist, is actually this woman named Jin Jinsa. And Jin Jinsa is mentioned very early on in the book, briefly, just briefly. So I was shocked to see her come back. She has her own show, which is like kind of, it was like a mid-tier show that didn't really get anywhere, but she married a famous weathercaster, so she kind of got a little bit of fame from that. But Jin Jinsa was actually the little girl back when Yi Banhui was a little boy, and he witnessed that first incineration happen. She was the little girl. She had taken the vitamin D, but she was had I don't know, she couldn't be hypnotized because she herself is like a strong hypnotist. I don't get the logic there. I don't know what that means. But anyway, so she had some sort of power that prevented her from being hypnotized and therefore prevented her from jumping in the well. So the Yees decided to use her to be the hypnotist for the people going forward. And she, in turn, was going to use Sky, the little girl that lives there in the present day, to eventually take her place. Because I guess children can't be hypnotized that way, and maybe she has some sort of special ability as well. I'm not really sure. But either way, really sick stuff. But anyway, Jinjin says the one behind all the hypnotizing, which I thought was kind of strange because she's not in the first book, and she is only briefly mentioned in this one, so I don't really have any like antagonistic feelings towards her, but it was a surprise. I'll give you that. So now they have to stop everything from happening. So she manages to get people, Chobam manages to get people to believe that the Yi family is crazy, and she ends up fighting the VP down there, and getting her like tied up, and they all decide they want out. She manages to wake everybody up before they take the vitamin D and all this stuff, okay? Because they're about to be purged out of here. Even Bonwi lets her know that they're about to be purged. And so she manages to stop that before that happens. And Chairman Shin comes in and she's like, okay, we've got this done. So now we have to get rid of these once and for all. Drew, don't scratch. Oh my gosh, my cats are losing it. Babes, don't scratch my furniture. Um, so now she's like, you promised to take down the Yees, so now we got to do that. And she's like, okay, but we're getting the people out of here first. So she takes Mr. Hart. He's the guy he had a heart-shaped tattoo who she recognized. Mr. Hart and Sky out with her and Chairman Shin, and they go out to this place, and it's odd. She notices that they keep that Sky and Mr. Hart are like sweating a lot when they leave behind the power plant prison. And it's strange. And the next thing you know, like once they get out of there, they're collapsing, they're falling, they're sick, they're not well. And Mr. Hart dies, and Sky is not doing good. And then she remembers because Sky told her, my cats are losing it. They're having the zoomies. They're having the big time zoomies right now. But she remembers something that Sky had told her about Wisher, because Wisher, the original Wisher, had left the prison, and so it was strange that Haiti come back. So a Haiti or Chobam came back, who looks like Wisher, right? So obviously a Haiti had been in that prison, had left that prison at some point, and then she came back. But Sky had told her that before Wisher left, she was given a special medicine that she took before she left. And Sky had taken some of those for herself. She didn't know what they were for. They didn't do anything when she'd taken them. And she's like, Chobam was like, why are you taking strange pills, Sky? Please don't do that. But Chobam realizes, and she brought them with her, that these pills were like hydration pills, okay? And something that the prisoners were taking while they were in that prison was causing them some level of, like, would trigger some level of dehydration when they left the prison. So if whatever they were taking in there, it didn't affect them in the prison, but as soon as they left, it caused total dehydration. Their bodies just leaked all of the water out, and they just turned into a dry husk and died. That was something else that the Yees had done to make sure that if a prisoner ever escaped, they would never be able to say anything. Sick in the head, bro. Sick in the freaking head. So it's too late for Mr. Hart. She can't help him. So she gives Sky the remaining pill. And she has to leave her there and go with Chairman Shin. Actually, I think Chairman Shin forcefully takes her. And next thing you know, she's knocked out by Chairman Shin somehow. And she's brought to a secret place that is only activated via the mirrors. Okay. It's Chairman Shin's like secret penthouse or whatever. And she's got her cardioverter on and she's like frozen. She can't move because the cardioverter is like extending so much energy. Like she realized before that this cardioverter thing is actually really bad for your heart because if you turn it off, it slows your heart back down. But if you turn it on, it revs your heart up so high that you're exhausted, and it would basically burn your heart out. And so she realizes it's actually a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It doesn't matter what it does. And but Chairman Shin is now standing in front of her doing her evil villain monologue, right? So it turns out Chairman Shin's not the good guy. She does want to overtake the Yi, but she wants to take over and fit everyone with cardioverters and make them make power via the cardioverters, which would basically half their lifespan because you are expending your heart so much, right? And of course, that Chobam is like, no, no one would live very long. Who would want to live like that? That's insane. And she's like, oh, Chobam, don't worry. People like you and me, we wouldn't have to wear them. We would live off of the power made by those people. What? What? In what world would Chobam want that? It's like an insane take. But anyway, of course, Chobam is like, absolutely not. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, then I'm just going to kill you. That's fine, no problems. And so she starts like revving up her cardioverter by making things like she's making tea, but using the power from her heart to do it and like things like that. I don't understand the technology. It's not super explained, but whatever. So she's trying to kill her, but then next thing you know, bang! Shine comes in. Shine is a crack shot, by the way. And Shine walks in and she's dead, super dead. And then they're kind of panicked because they're like, wait a second, we can't get out of here now. But they find their way out anyway. They eventually, things happen, they find their way out. And she's asking about the other people. Well, it turns out everyone started to get sick, so they brought them back in. They found a way to help the people to escape safely, and now they're back out. Okay, so it's great. But they have one last thing to do, and that is to stop the once and for all. Okay. Now, this is the most anticlimactic end, in my opinion, after all that action, all that excitement. Like, basically, the four girls go there and they do take down Chairman Yi, or President Yi. They do take her down, but it's like, and then they took her down. Like, it's like not really explained or anything like that. It's just like, yep, they snuck into the mansion and they took down President Yi. It's more of a tell than a show. So that was kind of disappointing. But then it goes on to the biathlon, and in the biathlon, as we know, people are used as targets for that portion. But they don't want to do that anymore. And in fact, this game is going to be the last game where that's done, but there's only one human target in this biathlon now, and it's the president, or the former president, I should say. And I was kind of like, I get it. I get that this is like her execution and her punishment, but I just feel like so much of this book ends with like, because like the first one ended with them starting a show after it was revealed that shows were extremely detrimental to the mental wellness of people, and like it was not like a good thing. Like all the reality shows weren't a good thing. And it just kind of seemed weird that I know that it was supposed to be educational, but like it kind of seemed weird that it ended with them starting a show. And then this one ends with them killing the president in the same way that she had convicted criminals killed. And I get that it's kind of like, here's your own medicine kind of a situation, but I don't know why it just felt to me kind of weird and like not the correct response. Like, just put her in jail forever. Let her suffer and rot in prison. Like, I feel like that would be a more suitable ending. But whatever. It's their choice, I guess. But yeah, all ends well, it ends well. Basically, everyone can go into Snowglobe now if they want. And Snowglobe is cold, though not nearly as cold as the outside world, simply for the sake of the dome, I guess. Um, and yeah, it just kind of ends like that, positive. It actually, I think the last part is a note from Yosu that Yi Banwee found and he gave to them. And of course, the rest of the Yi family who were not killed via execution all live in a glass house, and they have a show in which they live in a glass house. Which again, I was like, oh, so the shows are still going on. I'm assuming Snowglobe is still different, but it's not really explained all of the changes that maybe came into place because of what she did. And I guess the reality TV rolls on. I don't know. But he manages to give her a note from Yosu, which was it was good. It was a good ending, I guess. She was basically just calling for like, make a new world or just make sure that this doesn't happen again, kind of thing. Which I guess happened. I don't know. That's the thing. Like as much fun as both of these books were, and they were fun. I'm not going to deny they were a good time. It just feels like some of the ball was dropped in like the satisfying ending just wasn't quite there for me. So even though I am going to reread these again because I just want to reread them consecutively, at least after some time, I just feel like they could have used a little bit more polish in just the ending. It just felt like it happened really fast, especially since, oh my gosh, the many chapters that took place in the underground prison were so good. And even in this book, like when you start to realize that there are multiple Hades, that's when it's like, oh my gosh, this is so good and I cannot put it down. It's just like, and she's so good at writing those moments and the heaviness of those moments and things. It's just that, like, it's when she's like coming to the conclusion that she rushes it and just drops it. It's like, okay, done, moving on to the next thing. And it's like, we could have sat there for a minute. We could have found a different way to like talk about it. I don't know, like something. It just give it a little more gravity. I don't know. Just it might just be a personal preference. But I still definitely enjoy these. I would definitely recommend them. They are YA, but they're very clean. There's no spice whatsoever. There's not even really any romance. I guess the first one has a little bit, but the second one doesn't have any. Um, there is language throughout, but it's pretty minimal language. I think each book has at least one F word in it, which if you don't like that, you know, I was surprised to see it because most of the book has very minimal, like just like dams or things like that. But then suddenly there's one F bomb, and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. But there's only one, so you can skip that pretty easily. But overall, I think the mystery is fun. Of course, I have spoiled it. If you've watched this far, I've spoiled it for you. But I would not take my word for it. I think you should just read it and enjoy it yourself. And because obviously, my little summary here is just a summary. There's a lot of other things that happen in here which are very interesting. And she plays with some things that, again, are very interesting. I'm like giving you a summary of events and a summary of the plot twists and things like that. When you read it, it is a much more fun show, I will say. So yeah, that is going to be it. Snow Globe 1 was a 4-star. I think Snow Globe 2 is also a 4-star or a 3.5 kind of situation. They're both good, and I enjoyed them and will read them again. I love a good sci-fi post-apocalyptic situation. I think those are fun. So if you also think those are fun, I would definitely give this book series, a duology, a shot. It's only a duology. You're not committing to a whole lot of other stuff. And I definitely will be keeping an eye on So Young Park and see what else she comes up with because I really do like her ideas and I think she's very creative. Um, I hope in the future to see maybe just a little more follow through with the events of the things that happen. So that's all that I'm saying. That's all. That's the only complaint I have. So yeah, we're gonna leave that here and put those away for the time being. I've also, oh my gosh, cat hair. I finished a few books. I finished Rebel Soul. I know I talked about that as well. I also said that read like a K-drama, which it did. That is also a duology. I haven't gotten the second book yet. That's by Axio. But if you like Snowglobe, or if you like So Young Park's writing or Axio's writing, I think you would like the other, is what I'm trying to say. Because I've read both and I like both a lot. I think that Axio uses a lot more language in her books, which I like less. However, I think her writing style is a little bit more, she's better at some of the follow throughs. So I really like her writing style. Their writing styles are very different, I would say, but if you like one, I think you would like the other because I like them both. So I am still going to be reading ASAP by Axio. I haven't started that yet, but hopefully soon. But anyway, it has been a South Korean author's month for me for sure. Well, I mean, we're in August now, but last month was the month. So, but we're still reading. I love South Korean authors. Are you kidding me? I love authors that are all over the world. Way to go, guys. You're doing it. You're doing the creative thing. So, yeah, we're going to leave that there. So just remember that I love you and Jesus loves you way more. Let me know what books you are reading. Let me know if you like So Young Park or Snow Globe, or do you like Axio and some of her books. Spill the tea. Let me know. And have a great day. Bye, guys.